So, Joe, a few weeks ago we were talking about the state of baseball, and both of us were in agreement that while we thought things were bad, that we felt that there would be a coming together at the last minute. Players and owners realizing that they don't want to jump off the cliff together. They come together in this great kumbaya moment, and we have a baseball season. And not only has the last 2 weeks proved that they are willing to jump off that cliff, they're jumping off the cliff without a parachute. I think is that a good way of explaining what the heck is happening in baseball the last 2 weeks?
I think they're just two giant boulders just next to each other. Neither of them can move. Neither of them will be moved. Uh, they're just not doing anything, and losses just growing all over them, and nothing's gonna
And
happen.
life is leaving
Uh,
them by. So what the heck are we talking about for those who are under those rocks and don't know what's been happening? Well, to be frank, nothing has moved on baseball. As of June 13th, the the players union rejected the latest attempt from Major League Baseball to broker a deal around the collective bargaining agreement that they have. And not only did they reject it, that Tony Clark, the union chief, said that they would not have any other counteroffer. Quote: "It's time to get back to work. Tell us when and where." So and since then, Rob Manfred, shortly before we started recording, previously he said that he's 100% confident that there'll be a season, and just today he has said that there that he is now not confident that a season will occur, which is
so how do you go from 100% to like 0% in a matter of 5 days?
well. Let's start. Let's start from the beginning. So why did the players union finally say enough? We are not going to do this. Well, it's kind of the reason is because the owners crying poor has started to backfire big time on them. The comments of the Cardinals owner Bill DeWitt Jr. and uh, the Cubs and the Diamondbacks saying that baseball just isn't a profitable sport kind of is a head turning just on the face of it. But right before the players union rejected the deal for uh, that was put in front of them, MLB reached its own deal with Turner Sports, TBS network, for a
Mm-hmm.
$1 billion deal to cover the postseason between the 2022 and 2028 season. Now, obviously, there was little, if anything, that would come now of that money. That's future money.
Mm-hmm.
But it roughly equates to about $470 million per season that Turner Sports is paying Major League Baseball. Anywhere between about 300 and 500, depending on each part of the each year of the deal. And if you remember, the difference between the players' salary demands and the owner's salary demands, the players asking for the full prorated and more games, and the owners asking for less games and less on the prorated side, is about $320 million. So, roughly, say, $10.5 million per team, give or take. Now, obviously, the current deal that they're probably under with TBS or Fox or TNT and whatever other network for the postseason, probably less
Mm-hmm.
than what Turner Sports just reached, just because of how things escalate over years, inflation, profitability, what you mind. But that's kind of not what you want to be advertising when you're in the middle of a labor fight where
No,
money
that's
is
not
one
at
of the
all.
chief problems. And
Yeah.
to that manner, Jeff Passan wrote on ESPN. I believe it was Jeff. No, Buster Olney. Excuse me. Sorry, getting my baseball reporters. mixed up, but said that this is the Jeff Lunhow mindset. If you recall, Jeff Lunhow was the general manager of the Astros, now the disgraced and banned from baseball for a year because of the sign stealing that became rampant under his tenure. But he calls it the Jeff Lunhow mentality, as he says, quote, the absolute devotion of gleaning every fragment of advantage, every bit of efficiency, regardless of whether you might drift beyond the boundaries of common sense. The ends justify the means. Just win the moment, end quote. You can't do that. If you're going to be doing that, you're, one, going to alienate the other side, which is not coincidentally what Lunhow did to a lot of his other general manager and scout friends, and two, as I said in the opening, you're just going to jump off the cliff together. That if baseball is canceled because they can't agree on salary and other things, that baseball was already starting to lose its grip on the number two spot for sports. NFL long since eclipsing them, and basketball jockeying for that. Now they might even have to fight for the bottom with hockey if this keeps up, because fans are going to be completely alienated in a time when a lot of people are hurting, a lot of people are sick, a lot of people are out of work, and they need something that can just keep their mind off of the toils and the grim realities of daily life right now in America and the world, only to be squabbling from dollars and cents. It's disgusting, honestly.
Now, we've talked about all of this, and basically, my, I guess, 2 cents would be, yes, they have that future money that's coming in, and owners have had seasons in the past where they've been more profitable. Now, that's not all owners. Some teams do lose money because of either they just bought a team, or they had a bad season, or they're trying to tank and they're not getting any of that seat revenue or TV broadcast deals because they're not in a top market area. So the owners have made money in the past, and at this point, they already know that they were going to be losing money. And we discussed a couple weeks back that some owners were completely fine shutting it down because they'd be losing less money not having the season than running the season.
Yeah.
And if that's their mentality, they should definitely just come out straight up, say it, and say, hey, we're going to bite the bullet on this one because we're not getting those seat revenues, although Tampa Bay probably wouldn't mind.
There are a few franchises that wouldn't see a decrease at all. It's already that bad.
Yeah, I mean, they probably pay more in people working at the stadium than they do getting seats. That's probably not true, but might as well seem like it with how little fans there are, unless the Yankees show up. But what the problem is, though, like I had said, is the owners have made money in the past, and they know they're not making anything this year, and they're only thinking about this year. They're not thinking about next year, and when they gotta agree to new terms with the players. So if we're not having this year, how that's going to affect next year and then the year after that. Are we going to have baseball within these next 3 years?
That I didn't think that was a question we'd have to ask in 2020, but it's shockingly become a very legitimate question. And another reason that we're having these problems right now is, per the March agreement that MLB and the Players Union had, that the Commissioner Manfred has the ability to implement it as long as a season as he wants, but it also says that he has to do it in good faith. It has to be for as many games as as they're able to given the circumstances. And a lot of what the Players Union have in their last few proposals has been doing is has been opined by a few of the reporters as posturing for an eventual grievance to be filed over the off-season, saying that the league did not bargain in good faith in these negotiations.
I don't think they did.
Yeah, but one of the reasons why there's less optimism on a season now than ever is that just today, Monday, the league sent the union a letter saying that there won't be a season unless the players waive any legal claim against MLB stemming from the March agreement, which is basically the all that and from what the negotiations have been going on from the outset, from the outside looking in, it looks like MLB has just been trying to break the back of the union, divide the players against them, but against each other. But if anything, each time that something's leaked out to the media, something is sent, and we hear about it, the players seem to just be 100% against everything that the league is going, and it's why we're in this situation that we might not have baseball this year. We might not even have baseball next year, depending on how ugly this gets, and it's pretty ugly right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and like I had talked about before, with the seat revenue, obviously that being a big thing. And players do have to understand that's where the owners get a good majority of their money from, and they have to. Like, I understand you want to definitely be paid what you're told you agreed to be paid for, and even if it's prorated because you're not playing as many games, you'd get the same percentage as many games you would play.
Right.
But I think you have to sort of scale it down a little bit, and I'm not saying do that crazy bracket where Garrett Cole, instead of making his $36 million, he'd be making $8 million. But I mean, obviously, it's getting later and later into. I guess it's technically not summer yet.
Yeah, but it's about as close
but
as it can.
it's getting more and more into the 2020 year, and these players are now going to have less games to play. So at this point, Garrett Cole, even if they do have the season, he might only be making the $8 million at this point anyway. But if you want to just take that mentality, and instead of it being that drastic from that point of view of taking the pay cut on top of the prorated salaries, just take the prorated and maybe shave a little bit off of it, like maybe go like 90% or something like that, just to give the owners like maybe a little bit more wiggle room, and maybe tie that into next year, and maybe the players get an extra like 5% or something of the ticket sales whenever fans are allowed to come back in. I mean, I don't know how the numbers work specifically, but I feel like something like that would be at least fairly decent in terms of getting something agreed for.
Yeah. The worst thing is that Manfred has no reason to start a season. Per the March agreement, the commissioner is allowed to not begin a season unless three conditions are satisfied. One, there are no governmental restrictions on spectators attending games. Just about every state where there is a major league franchise has at least some capacity restriction on sporting event, if not an outright ban at the moment. Two, there are no relevant travel restrictions in the United States and Canada. Currently, you cannot travel between the U.S. and Canada. 3. After consultation with recognized medical experts and the union, that there are no unreasonable risks to players, staffs, and spectators to stage games in the 30 home parks. We still don't know a lot about this virus. So, by those standards, none of those conditions have been met. There is no reason that Manfred could start a season if he and the owners so decide to, but it's just disgusting how it seems that in a time when baseball had the best opportunity to show the nation how to heal, that they could have come back on the 4th of July. It could have been poetic. It could have been the stuff like 9/11 return, and instead we might not have any baseball at all.
Yeah. Now talking about Toronto and Canada and whatnot, since we've sort of beaten the non-existing baseball to almost death now.
The horse has been beaten to death long ago. We're just continuing.
Yeah. The NHL is supposed to start back up. Teams will resume play on Friday, July 10th. and they have about 10 hub cities. They're going to do about they're going to do 2 cities, but there's about 10 of them that are in contention, and all 10 of them have been said they're not disqualified yet, but I believe 3 of them are Canadian teams, and Canada still has that strict 14-day quarantine. And if you got to be moving back and forth with that, I don't know how that's going to be. And there are some teams right now that are practicing in Canada. So if they got to switch to the U.S. and the U.S. is still implementing its 14-day travel quarantine, then you're going to have to move everyone down for that as well.
Well, just a minor clarification that July 10th is when training camps open up.
Yeah,
they still haven't
camp.
announced
Yes.
when the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs will occur.
Yes.
But phase 3 is a good sign that it could occur at sometime maybe in early, late August if training camps are opening up in mid-July.
Now, what's getting scary, though, is 'cause that's all we really have with the NHL, but with the NBA...
we're having problems in the NBA too.
Yeah, Florida opened up a lot. Those old retired people are completely crazy. The NBA has agreed with Disney to finish the season there. They would have I think it was like 8-game season. They'd have to still arrange for everything.
Basically a tune-up season and then the expanded playoffs.
Because they still had a good 20 games to go or something like that. So the NBA was working with that, but with the whole Black Lives Matter thing and the virus being a little bit more creeping up again back in Florida because those old people can't keep it together. And it's just sort of frustrating that, basically Kyrie Irving, Avery Bradley, and a couple other veterans have been sort of conversing together on big video chats and sort of trying to speak up and say for players who might think they'd be pushed down and looked down upon for voicing opinions on not wanting to play because of the virus and what they're going to be doing in this confined space, how much freedom. But then also, for whatever dumb reason, they're making this a Black Lives Matter thing. I don't understand how that translates to playing. I'm not really
the quote,
sure on that
I
end.
have the quote from Irving up here if you want me to read it. Quote, I don't support going into Orlando, not with the systemic racism and the biscuits. Let's just say biscuits. I think you know that it's not biscuits. Anyway, something smells a little fishy. Whether we want to admit it or not, we are targeted as black men every day we wake up. From what I've seen, what Kyle Irving and other people like Bradley, other names on the call were Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, and Donovan Mitchell. Not sure how they feel about it, but anyway, what they're saying is that returning to play, return to the NBA, is going to take their voice away somehow from the Black Lives Matter protests. That it's going, which if anything, I think, based on the history of what has happened in the last several years of racial tensions and sports, if anything, they get more recognition for going on the field.
Basketball is mostly predominantly black.
Yeah.
If anything, that's the stage to do it on.
Yeah. Remember the I Can't Breathe shirts that LeBron James and the Miami Heat had for right after what's his name in Staten Island?
Yeah.
I forget his name offhand, but that was
it's.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
This is the stage for it. Yeah, no, I know. But this is the stage to be doing it, is the NBA.
Yeah, the NBA, which, especially as they're on pace to be the first of the 4 pro sports to return to play. That, as I said, the first to come back has all the eyes of the nation and the world on them. That, considering that it seems like all the league imposed notions on what you can and can't do during before a game and stuff is being thrown out the window by players given the current rhetoric. That heck, they could wear their Black Lives Matter shirts. They'll probably kneel. For the national anthem. They'll probably do all the stuff that they think will be done to show off those causes. And to that end, NBA Players Association Executive Director Michelle Roberts says that players spent much of the weekend discussing how they can use their quote obvious influence to best highlight those causes, and to that end, everyone who follows the NBA does not expect this to be a hiccup for the season, unlike baseball's current problem.
Yeah, so I understand if Kyrie and Avery are concerned about the virus and being infected and their, I guess, freedom of doing things while being, enclosed in Disney. That was an eye roll I had. You can't see it because it's audio.
Visual gags on a podcast. How wonderful.
Yeah. I understand that point of view and not wanting to play with everyone sort of just in Florida just coming back together like nothing's happened. I understand that, but not wanting to play because there's a big racism revolution sort of thing going on right now, that's just not a valid reason to not play, especially in the NBA where compared to the other sports, the NBA is most predominantly black, and that's just the ignorance. And Kyrie Irving is a very talented player. Avery Bradley is very good defensively. But if I learned anything from watching my Boston Celtics with Irving being there for the 2 years he was there, is that he is a headache. He causes more trouble than there needs to be. He's very talented. He's got some of the best dribbling I've ever seen. But he's more of a headache than he's worth. And if he's the one leading the way, I think some of these other players need to find a better leader to follow. He's just not the right person. He's not even going to even play when the Nets come back because he's injured. I believe it's his shoulder. So, if anything, his opinion should be null and void because he's not coming back. Kevin Durant, who I guess theoretically could come back, already said he's not going to come back, and I wouldn't rush him either, coming back from that Achilles tendon injury, and also I think it was a knee injury, ACL, whatever it was. He had suffered some really bad stuff at the end of last season, but this is just getting crazy with the NBA.
Yeah, and
I hope it comes back and everything's completely fine. I guess we'll just have to see in that perspective.
I guess the last thing to end on the NBA note is Hall of Famer Charles Barkley argued Monday that number one, if they don't play, they're going to be out of sight and out of mind for the rest of the year, and they're going to lose billions of dollars that not only they get for themselves, but they can also use in their communities and donate to the causes. So that's another point on that, as you have Irving and Steven Jackson on the side of we shouldn't be playing, and then LeBron James and others saying no, we should play. But we'll see. Well, that considering,
and I'm excited for the NBA to come back because it's kind of interesting. I mean, LeBron went to like 8 straight NBA finals before last year. So he had a nice long summer to finally relax because the Lakers didn't make the playoffs last year. So he had a nice long summer to relax, and then the season got interrupted this year, so now he's had another 3 months to sort of relax. I mean, he's not as young as he used to be. I'm not saying that he's 60, but he's definitely not he's still probably the best player in the league, possibly all time. but it's a good rest for him, and that'll probably help the Lakers. Kawhi Leonard on the Clippers. I mean, we saw last year what rest did for him with the Raptors, and the Raptors won the championship. He won Finals MVP for the second time. First time was with the Spurs. So we have a lot of these players here who are going to be fresh, hopefully, as long as they keep up their training. I know James Harden looks like he shed a little bit of weight, and he's just going to be even more explosive. So I think this is going to be a really, really good run to the championship finals here in the NBA as long as we get this cooking.
Yeah.
But now to switch over to a little football, just a little bit of news. We don't have too much, but former All-Star Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys, it was leaked that he tested positive, as well as some other players on the Houston Texans. So, I mean, NFL is still a little bit of ways. I mean, normally they would be doing like OTAs and rookie mini camps and whatnot just about now. So, I mean, you're missing out on that. But the NFL still has a little bit of wiggle room to sort of get everything into shape and running. But, of course, there's still everyone coming back, especially in Florida, where the virus could pick back up again come time by, like, the middle of the year for the NFL. So we're still not sure on that.
Yeah. Well, the one thing with testing, you got to remember that that even if the numbers are going up, one part of that is because of testing being up. The more people you test, the more
Yes.
people you're going to find. And the other thing in Florida, I saw something from the governor DeSantis that the intensive care unit hospitalization since April 12th is down by half. The people on ventilators is down by 2/3. That all the numbers are going
definitely trending down.
Yeah, except for more cases. And the
Yeah.
other thing is a large chunk, at least half of all the cases in Florida are centered around the Miami area. So you think about that, all those cases concentrated in a small area, and then the rest of the cases spread out over one of the larger states in the country.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not saying Florida is definitely a hot spot and it's going to recause everything. It's just a matter of being mindful of what you're doing, who you're interacting with, how you're interacting with people. Obviously, more tests means more positive ones just by how math works. But you still have to understand what's going on. And as you reopen back up, and with protests and people seeming to ignore social distancing rules for that, there's going to be some repercussions on that.
Yeah. Speaking of protests, let's finish on NASCAR and something that I completely forgot happened this week when we were.
With Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, but that we always pre-block our shows before we come on, just so that we have an idea of what's going on, and we completely forgot that that Bubba Wallace in NASCAR led the sport to ban the Confederate flag at all NASCAR tracks.
Now, I sent you a picture image of all the different Confederate flags over the years. Now, the Confederate flag most people think of is not the actual official flag, like the United States official flag is with the 13 stripes, the 50 stars. The Confederate flag most people think of is actually the battle flag. So I sent you a picture of that and said, well, if they're just banning the Confederate flag and not the battle flag, they should still be able to use the battle flag. But you said to use the official one because people wouldn't understand that one.
Yeah, because
now, obviously we're not advocating for that, but if you want to be a jerk about it,
if you want to get some weird
be...
stares at you, you do that.
Yeah,
and wasn't just Bubba Wallace who was the only minority, only black NASCAR driver at the moment in the sport, Ray Cicciarelli also got some flack because he quit the sport the over the ban and other issues. And
Well, actually, did you see what NASCAR responded to on, I believe,
no,
Twitter?
I did not.
They were like, we actually had to Google you to see who you were. Your 12 fans will be missed.
Oh, as funny as it is, I'm not sure the official NASCAR
No,
should be doing
but
that.
it sort of.
But he's said that since then he's gotten abuse from online. Which,
Well, that's what you get
yeah.
for being a jerk about
Yeah.
it.
And to his end,
Jimmy Johnson, former 7-time champion, had cut ties with one of the people who would design his helmets because he made some racy tweets and remarks online. So getting someone high profile like Jimmy Johnson behind all of that in a motorsport where it's mostly considered a bunch of redneck southern hicks who have like no morals, I guess, if you want to go like for the stereotypical NASCAR fan. So it's good that you're getting good support and diversity amongst that, but they just gotta, I still think, focus on the season and get things ready. Although Bubba Wallace's car did look kind of cool.
yeah. And I guess
That he had.
I guess to end on a nice note, as I look at Twitter and see that a hashtag Fire Manfred is beginning to trend in sports. Let's end on something else, other than that. Like Dale Earnhardt.
Well,
Dale
I
Earnhardt
was just
Jr.,
gonna say-
who participated on Saturday in the Xfinity Series at Homestead Miami Speedway, continuing our Florida connection, of course,
yes.
which was his first appearance since August at Darlington. And following his finish, he said that he doesn't know how many more of these races that he'll do. This might.
Yeah, so he's retired from full-time
Yeah.
racing. He's done a little bit here and there. His last 3 races in the Xfinity Series, he's finished in the top 5. How much more he's got left? I mean, he's 45. That's not old. I mean, Mark Martin, he kept racing for a while.
Yeah, and
he was
and
an old guy.
Cicciarelli, who we just talked about, is 50.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's definitely got some stuff. I think Matt Kenseth, how old is Matt Kenseth? He was sort of retired, but he sort of like came back a little bit. He's 48. So he's been racing after, I forget who it was, just got fired for making dumb remarks. But I think it's Kyle Larson. But so Kenseth's still racing. He's not doing as well as he was when he won the championship in '03, I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But so Earnhardt can still definitely do it, but I mean, he's sort of, he never won a championship, Earnhardt Jr., but he definitely won favorite driver for so many years, and his dad left a legacy. But just to bring it all the way back to baseball again, one thing we sort of avoided unintentionally is an undisclosed letter.
Yeah, it's
So-
not just any letter. It's a letter from Commissioner
Yeah.
Manfred to the New York Yankees about the sign stealing accusations that were lobbed at them from the Red Sox in 2017. And there is a lawsuit that until recently was unrelated to baseball, stemming over that, and a judge has just authorized that the letter should be unsealed because, quote, everything is already out there. So the Yankees and are likely to appeal this ruling, but if anything comes out that the Yankees were using the Yes Network cameras to steal opposing team signs, then that's another black eye on Manfred, who said that there was no cheating from the Yankees back at a time when, and just pile on to the labor issues that are going on, players and some pundits saying that MLB was very light uh, the on the punishment of the Astros and the Red Sox for their cheating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beginning to wonder how Manfred survives this. How does Manfred come out, especially if the season is canceled? Because the owners are about the only people, it looks like, that support him at the moment.
Yeah, one of the things I'm kind of curious about is Aaron Boone's job is completely safe because he didn't come in until 2018.
Right.
It was Joe Girardi in 2017. He is now the manager of the Phillies, I
Yes.
believe. So we've already seen the Mets cut ties with Carlos Beltran, and Beltran didn't even get to manage a game. I mean, it doesn't seem to be as severe as the Astros, as far as we can tell right now. But I mean, I guess who knows what the letter really says?
Yeah, we'd have to wait until the letter.
Yeah, just because maybe that comes to bite Girardi in the butt now.
But as I said, the bigger problem is if it leads to evidence that the cheating is widespread, not just from the Yankees, Red Sox, and Astros, but for other teams. Remember?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like everyone's sort of like with steroids, where everyone was like someone on all the teams was doing
there's
it.
Too much smoke for there not to be fire. But it's the fact that it's not publicly out there is what's saving some people's jobs.
What my problem is that everyone was like super outraged about the Trastros, and they're like, oh well, maybe we should have won this, strip them of the title. But I mean, we both sort of talked about it as well. Maybe not necessarily here, but during like friend meetups and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
That everyone's sort of doing it to an extent. The bending the rules, seeing what you can do, because technology is evolving every day, and we're just seeing more and more of what you can do until it becomes, hey, this is now a problem. So whether it comes out that the Yankees were doing exactly what the Astros were doing during the year the Astros won that World Series, I don't know. As a Yankee fan, obviously you'll be disappointed, like, oh, I guess we are the evil empire again. We were being bad, but
I mean, it's hard to get disappointed considering everything else that's happened.
Yeah, what disappoints me is the players who were like very upset at the Astros, and then it's sort of like, well, you were doing the same thing. So I don't know if I just have like less respect for everybody. But I guess we'll have to see if this letter gets revealed and what it says.
Yeah, it's unsettling to say the least.
And just to leave on one more unsettling note, the MLB might also have another former failed NFL quarterback become an MLB player.
Oh, I don't think this has failed. I always love these stories.
So former Jets quarterback Christian Hackenberg, who never actually had a snap in the NFL, even though he was selected in the second round by the Jets a few years back. He's looking to become a pitcher, unlike Tebow, who's in the outfield. We might have someone else trying to come over, and I don't know how well that's going to go.
I mean,
he reportedly has a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, but so do some shortstops. So.
Yeah, and also they looked at his college record that he showed a bit of too lively of an arm, that his ERA was like in the high sevens. So
yeah, it said in high school in 25 2/3 innings, struck out 33 batters with 40 walks. Yikes. 5 hit by pitches and a 7.36 ERA. He was better as a hitter with 10 home runs and a 378 average and 148 at bats. I mean, looking at those are high school stats, so that doesn't really mean too much. But At the same time, I mean, if you're hitting that much better than you are pitching, I'm not sure why he would want to become a pitcher at that point. But
We'll see.
I guess we'll have to see what happens if baseball ever comes back and who's gonna sign him.
Well, I'll tell you what's coming back next week. Us, because we've been going.
There's got to be something.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be something. We got to look at the landing site when baseball cuts to the bottom of the cliff. We got to put the white tape around the bodies like the crime scene. But until then, it has been a pleasure as always.
Yes, it has. And luckily today it wasn't as hot.
No, except
so my room is not a furnace.
yeah,
right
except
now.
me because I'm always hot. So says my girlfriend. But we will speak to you guys next time. Wash your hands.
All right. Yes, wash those hands and wear your masks and social distance. And baseball, get a move on.
Please.